Welcome. We're about to analyze some fascinating source material and really pull out the crucial takeaways you need to understand one of the most paradoxical gaming markets in Southeast Asia.
It really is a true market of contrasts.
And just so you know who we are the Gambling Databases Research Team. We're a group dedicated to delivering these in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape.
In each country report, we look at everything. Local regulations, tax, player experience, operator conditions, the emerging trends.
Our whole goal is to give you a clear, data-driven picture of how the gambling industry works in each market and really what makes it unique.
And today's is definitely unique.
Oh, yeah. Today, the market we're analyzing is Cambodia. And if you just glance at the raw revenue figures, it looks like an absolute gold rush.
The numbers are huge.
They are. Our data projects something like $3.6 billion in gaming revenue for 2024, and it's growing. We're projecting an 8.6% compound annual growth rate through 2026. I mean, those are blockbuster numbers.
They are, but, and this is a huge but, those figures are almost entirely deceptive if you're looking at it through a digital lens.
Okay, deceptive how?
Well, Cambodia operates under this really strict, I'd say unforgiving, dual framework. So on one side, you have land-based casinos, and they're absolutely flourishing. We count about 193 licensed venues.
So the physical side is booming.
Right. But on the other side, online gambling is under a total outright ban. And it's not just a law in the books. It's subject to extremely aggressive government enforcement.
So for a digital operator, this is a market of critical risk, despite all that money flowing around.
Exactly. Critical risk.
Okay, let's unpack this regulatory minefield. Because the source material, it paints this picture of a market that's somehow booming and completely inaccessible at the same time. We need to figure out who this market is built for and who it's designed to keep out.
That's the key question.
So if we focus on the legal status, land-based gambling is permitted. It's all managed by the Commercial Gambling Management Commission, the CGMC.
Right, the CGMC. And they're the ones who permit these facilities in designated zones, which are mostly aimed at international tourism.
But the real story here is the online prohibition. It's comprehensive. It covers everything. No license issuance, no operational activities, not even any promotion of digital gambling.
And the thing about the CGMC is, unlike a lot of regulators, they don't just grant licenses. They hold joint licensing and enforcement power.
So they're the judge, jury, and executioner all in one.
Pretty much. They're the singular choke point for the whole land-based sector. And if you want to play in this market, you need immense financial muscle. The capital requirements alone act as the primary gatekeeper.
And that barrier to entry is just staggering. I mean, we're talking about an effective $100 million minimum capital requirement just to operate a standalone casino.
100 million. And that's the minimum.
If you want to build one of these modern integrated resorts, the kind that drive those big revenue numbers, the requirement jumps to $200 million.
Exactly. And let's put that in perspective for you. Cambodia is basically pricing itself alongside global gaming hubs like Singapore or Macau for capital entry.
But with a much smaller immediate market.
A much smaller addressable market. And that tells you something really crucial about the government strategy here. They are deliberately filtering out everyone except the biggest institutional players.
So this is a playground strictly for, multinational funds and publicly traded companies.
That's it. Not your typical private iGaming operator. They're not even in the running.
And crucially, these huge opulent resorts, they're built for one audience only, right? Foreigners and VIPs.
One audience. The law is very clear that Cambodian citizens are strictly prohibited from gambling in these places.
You have a population of nearly 17 million people, and that entire local population is legally fenced off from the gaming floor. It's a completely isolated model.
And if you look at the recent regulatory changes, you can see the government is just doubling down on control. They haven't just hiked fees, they've fundamentally changed how they oversee these venues.
Okay, like what?
Well, the introduction of GGR taxes was one thing. But what's far more telling was the move to establish 13 permanent on-site regulator offices within the licensed casinos themselves. That happened between 2023 and 2025.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause on that. So the government isn't just auditing them. They have people physically embedded in the operations.
Precisely. They're sitting right there in the building. It indicates an extremely high level of surveillance and control.
Which makes it basically impossible for these places to run any kind of, gray operations or facilitate offshore digital stuff under the table.
Impossible. They're watching every single cash exchange, every transaction. This isn't a trust-based model. They are policing these casinos from the inside.
So when we look at our own internal scores, the assessment is brutal. Our sources give the operator E-score a, what is it, a 0.5 out of 10.
It's incredibly low, almost unheard of.
And that score seems justified then. You combine the illegal status of online with these 9-figure capital costs. And yeah, 0.5 shouts prohibition. It means there is no shadow route, no backdoor for digital. The crackdown is absolute.
It really is.
So the entry ticket is high, 100 to 200 million, and the government is sitting in your office. Let's say you've done all that, you've raised the funds, you've built the resort. Now you have to keep the lights on.
And that's where the operating environment gets just as punitive as the capital requirements. You bought the ticket, now you face the monthly bills.
And the tax structure is heavy, especially with the changes in 2025.
It's like they dropped a fiscal anvil on operators.
Okay, so let's break down that fiscal pain. What's the 2025 framework look like for an operator?
So you start with a standard gross gaming revenue tax, the GGR tax, at 7%. That drops a little bit down to 4% for VIP gaming, which is a small nod to that high roller focus.
Okay, 7% and 4%.
But the major, really difficult new burden is a 10% value-added tax, or VAT, that's applied to gross revenue. And this has been strictly enforced since January 2025.
Wow, a 10% VAT on top.
On top. And add to that another 1% monthly income tax prepayment. The margins start to look incredibly thin very quickly.
I want to circle back to the player, though, because we're focused on the operator's pain, but the player actually gets a pretty sweet deal here, don't they?
They absolutely do. The tax burden is entirely on the operator's revenue. There's currently no tax on individual player winnings at all.
Which is a huge incentive. It's designed to pull in those foreign high rollers and tourists to get them to choose Cambodia over other places.
That's the strategy.
Yeah.
Keep the revenue flowing in by making it very attractive for the end user.
But for that operator trying to hit that massive 5 to 7 year break-in mark, that combined tax load must just decimate their initial projections.
It does. I mean, you combine the GGR, that 10% VAT, and other turnover taxes, and your effective tax rate on revenue lands somewhere between, say, 18% to 25%.
That's a huge slice.
It is. And layered on top of that massive initial investment, it explains why the time to break even gets pushed out so far. It's a huge bet on long-term tourism growth and political stability.
Which brings us to the great paradox of Cambodia, this aggressive physical control versus the explosion of digital potential. The demographics just scream opportunity.
It's a massive contradiction.
You've got this youthful population, median age is what, 29.4 years? And staggering mobile penetration, 143% SIM subscriptions. A young, digitally fluent population is being completely denied access to a $3.6 billion industry.
The digital adoption rates are phenomenal. About 70% internet penetration, almost all of it from mobile broadband. And their digital payment infrastructure is modern and expanding so fast.
So things like mobile wallets, ABA Pay, Wing Money.
All of it. QR codes are absolutely ubiquitous. Technically, this should be the most fertile ground for iGaming in the entire region.
And yet it's a minefield. So why? How is the government able to maintain such an absolute ban when the digital rails are so clearly laid out?
Because the ban is enforced with extreme prejudice, and crucially, they are coordinating internationally.
What do you mean by that?
The government actively monitors suspicious cross-border financial transactions, especially anything that looks like payment processing for gambling. And the CGMC coordinates relentlessly with local law enforcement to shut down any unauthorized digital activity. It's an active, ongoing crackdown.
But the threat isn't just domestic. Let's get into the international angle, because that's what makes this territory, well, radioactive for digital operators.
This is where the risk becomes personal, life-changing, really. Cambodia has active extradition treaties with its neighbors, most notably China, Thailand, and Vietnam.
And the online ban is heavily driven by pressure from Beijing, right?
Absolutely. Beijing views online gambling aimed at its citizens as a major national security and economic threat. And Cambodia is cooperating.
So if you're running an unlicensed Asian-facing site and you're foolish enough to enter Cambodia, what's the actual risk?
The risk is rated as extreme. And we don't use that word lightly. The cooperation with Chinese and Thai police means that directors, or even mid-level operators who enter Cambodia are putting themselves directly in the line of fire for extradition requests.
So you could be detained and just sent back.
Immediately, you risk detention, deportation back to the country that wants you, and then severe penalties there. And this risk isn't just for the executives. It extends to payment processors and affiliates. They're all considered critical targets.
So if you're thinking of dipping a toe in this black market, the consequences are existential for you and your business.
Existential is the right word. It looks like seized assets, corporate dissolution, and potential imprisonment. There is no legitimate pathway for digital.
Which brings us to the final verdict. After looking at all these risk factors, Cambodia is rated high-risk prohibited for online operations. It gets an overall market attractiveness score of a truly dismal 1.3 out of 10.
And that rating just perfectly reflects the reality on the ground. The regulatory prohibition, the massive capital costs for the only legal route, and that active, aggressive international enforcement.
So our honest assessment for any industry professional listening is pretty simple.
It is. Cambodia is exclusively a physical-only jurisdiction. It's a space carved out for massive, highly capitalized resort developers focused on foreign tourism. For a purely digital iGaming business, the door is absolutely, positively closed.
So if you're considering this market, you have to be really honest with yourself. Are you a major international hotel developer with $200 million plus ready to invest in a building and wait 7 years for profitability?
And if the answer to that is no,
Then you should definitely avoid this market.
and here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. You can build physical walls. You can put regulators on site. But you can't fence off the internet forever.
Right.
So given the extreme digital connectivity in Cambodia, that 143% mobile adoption rate, and the digital behavior of its young population, how long can a government realistically maintain a 100% effective ban on online entertainment that is so readily available just across the border?
That's a massive challenge for them. That tension between the digital reality and the regulatory prohibition, that's going to be the fault line for Cambodia's future. You just can't ignore that level of mobile saturation indefinitely.
A truly high-stakes market of extremes.
For the full text of this and other country reports, you can visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.